discovered anything.
What we have? We know for sure that either Lacey or Mrs. Clutch is involved in this business. Possibly both. Yes. I suggest we go to pay the Clutch Ménage a visit.
Well, I'll be glad to take you over myself. What are you? You look a bit fagged this morning. I'm all right, sir. A bit liverish, that's all. Well, don't let it get you down. Come along, Watson.
Miss Potter.
Yes, sir?
They tell me tomato juice is an excellent antidote for raw alcohol.
That's Mrs. Clutch's place over there, the house with the white shutters.
Look at that crowd of people standing gawking out in front. I say, looks like something's happened.
Yes. There's my favorite watchdog of the law, Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard, standing in the doorway looking important. Hello, Lestrade. What's up, eh?
Plenty. A woman by the name of Clutch has just murdered her lodger, Dr. Lacey.
Yeah, I told you she'd do it someday.
Any unusual details?
No, open and shut case. First, she stabs him with a kitchen knife, then she throws the body, clothes and all, into a vat of magic acid this bloke was keeping in his dressing room.
Indeed. Any objections if I come in and take a look around?
All right. But I tell you, this case is open and shut. But come in. Body's in first room, head of the stairs. It's not nice, but if you want to look, go ahead. I got to stay here.
Oh, thanks.
What a vile odor.
Yes.
Chemical smell, plus something else.
Oh, that'll be the acid. Look out. Stairs are dark.
Holmes. You hear that noise? Like something bubbling and frying?
Yes. That's the acid working on the body.
Of course. That smell is acid and fat dissolving.
Right. Yes, this must be the room. Oh, good morning, Jenkins. Good morning. Lestrade sent you here to guard the body, eh?
Yes, sir.
This air, too.
Oh, Jenkins, I think you might open another window. Get a draft through here.
Yes, sir.
Now, Watson, if you'll bring me that jug labeled olive oil, you may as well stop the action of this acid.
You're right.
Yes, sir. Pour it right into the tub. As Lestrade said, the remains are not exactly attractive. I wonder, Sir Lionel, if you could bring yourself to identify Dr. Lacey.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Holmes. I'm a medical man. I'm quite used to... Yes, it is rather horrible. Tastes almost entirely eaten away. With the dark hair, what was left of it, and the clothes and that ring, he never could get it off his little finger. Yes, I think we may safely say that it's Lacey, poor devil.
Oh, Jenkins, how was he killed?
Kitchen knife on the table there. Mrs. Clutch's fingerprints plain as day.
So Lestrade's been persuaded the value of fingerprints, eh? Dear, the world does progress. Yes. These are Mrs. Clutch's prints, all right.
Hey, Joe. Simon is here. Bring Mrs. Clutch along.
Why didn't you go and take it to the end of me? I didn't kill him. He was dead when I come in. He was dead, I tell you.
None of your lip and get going.
Lestrade, just a moment. I'd like to ask this lady a few questions.
He was dead when I found him. Is it likely I'd have called in the police if I'd have done it?
Oh, you called in the police.
Well, that she did. Leaning out the window, screaming bloody murder.
Any idea who could have killed Dr. Lacey, Mrs. Clutch?
No, sir. I ain't been home all night. On account of my sister's having a baby. I went straight from Merkley to the hospital.
Oh, you had any chance to check up on that, Lestrade?
Oh, that's straight enough, but she'd been home at least 20 minutes before she called the police. Time to murder half a dozen doctors.
I didn't do it, Ophelia.
Now, you know, Lestrade, it's just possible that Mrs. Clutch may be right.
Huh?
You see, it would take several hours for acid to dissolve the corpse as far as this.
What of it? Her fingerprints are on the knife. That's enough for me. Hers and no one else.
And why shouldn't me fingerprints be on that knife? It's me own kitchen knife, ain't it?
Well, that knife, suppose you look at it again.
Now, what in blazes good?
Notice the order of the fingerprints, for instance. Thumb and forefinger near the blade end of the handle. Now, suppose you take this pocket knife of mine and pretend to stab me with it.
Ah, this is just a lot of... all right.
There, now, you see? Notice the way you hold it? Thumb against the outer end, little finger next to the blade. In other words, the grip for using a knife for kitchen work and for stabbing are exactly reversed. Dr. Lacey was not stabbed with this knife at all. It was put here by someone to incriminate Mrs. Clutch.
Yes, but if she didn't do it, who did?
Someone who wanted to get rid of her. You any idea who that could have been, Mrs. Clutch?
No, sir. That I haven't. The only person mean enough to do a thing like this was that son of a gun, Lacey. And he's dead now, Lord rest his soul. Oh, dearie me, it's not bad enough having a murder in my own house and then losing my best lodger. But the police have to go accusing me on top of it all. Right as not, I'll never get another tenant of these rooms. dearie me.
And all that is so much froth, my dear Mrs. Tutt, compared to the real danger you're in.
What's that?
The murderer. He's still at large, and he isn't exactly fond of you. I think I'll just drop in from time to time to make sure you haven't been murdered in your bed.
Really think Mrs. Clutch is in danger?
Obviously, Watson, obviously. Confounded, why doesn't she answer the bell? If anything's happened, oh, here she comes.
Oh, good afternoon, gentlemen. Please to step inside. I'd have come to the door sooner, but I was upstairs cleaning out Dr. Lacey's suite. Would you believe it? I've got a tenant.
You don't say. Well, does he know its history?
Yes, sir, that he does, but he says he's not superstitious.
Oh, how fortunate. What's he like?
Well, he's a German. Professor or something. Come here to carry on some experimenting with Dr. Lacey. Dr. Lacey told me he was expecting him only last week. And so when he come asking for Lacey this morning, and I told him what had happened, right away he asked if Dr. Lacey's notes and instruments were still here. And when I said yes, he said he'd move right in and carry on where Lacey left off. Would you mind coming upstairs while I finish my work?
Well, lead the way, Mrs. Clutch, lead the way.
He's a nice-looking man, too. Blonde with a beard. He limps a little. Oh, it'll be a relief, I tell you, after that, Lacey. He was getting queerer and queerer going out at all hours of the night. I declare I was on the verge of telling the police to keep an eye on him more than once. Well, here we are. Just you sit on the sofa. Now what in the name of...
Well, from what I can see out the window, I should say that your new lodger has arrived.
Saints preserve us. Excuse me, gentlemen, when I let him in.
Holmes, anything we'd better be going?
In a moment, Watson, in a moment. Plenty of time.
This way, please. Look up to the turn of stairs. Oh, my, ain't he hot? Oh, Mr.
Holmes.
This is Herr Gluck.
Professor Gluckfader, in Befehl.
How do you do?
Delighted. Sorry I had to come all this way and then find a friend dead.
He is no friend. He is what you call a colleague. Mrs. Clutch, the portmanteau on the bed.
Yes.
Well, I know Mrs. Clutch will make her comfortable. I trust you had better luck than Dr.
Come, Watson, come. We must be going. You see, Professor Gluckfader, we were the detectives on this case.
Don't you have found?
Nothing, I'm afraid, nothing. Oh, these are my notes on the case. I'm really rather ashamed of them. Would you mind if I burn them here in your fireplace?
Oh, not at all.
Thank you. Oh, dear me. I don't seem to have a match.
1 moment, I'll get you some. Here in the drawer of this table. Here you are. A nice little box.
Thank you, Dr. Lacey.
Huh?
I thought you would know where to find them. A place for everything and everything in its place. Yes, I was sure you would be drawn back to these rooms.
Me? You think I am Dr. Lacey? He is dead, murdered.
No, that wasn't Dr. Lacey in that tub of acid. It was one of the bodies he had stolen from St. Anthony's. It had a rather curious conformation of the bones of the right foot. I'd seen it the night before, so of course I recognized it. Your misfortune, Dr. Lacey.
But his foot, sir. What is all this rubbish?
And you see, it came to my attention not long ago that Professor Moriarty was getting in touch with quite a number of heavily insured businessmen. One after another, these men died. But by and by, the insurance companies became suspicious. I was told to investigate. I discovered that on several occasions, Professor Moriarty had called on Dr. Lacey. Dr. Lacey, who was experimenting with facial surgery. Dr. Lacey, who had access to any number of corpses from St. Anthony's. Well, in time, I began to suspect that Dr. Lacey was working on these dead bodies and transforming them so they would look like the gentlemen who wished to collect their insurance. Professor Moriarty made a handsome profit, I believe. Unfortunately, though, I couldn't prove my theory.
Gosh, it is crazy. No one would believe it.
Oh, so I found.
Then what good does it do you?
Just this. When you're in prison, the whole scheme will fall to the ground.
But I am not Dr. Lacey. You have no proof.
There you are wrong, sir. This little matchbox which you just handed me contains all the proof that I need. On it is a set of fingerprints, which is identical with some on the cabinet door in the laboratory of St. Anthony's. And those fingerprints are known to be Dr. Lacey's.
Holmes, it's magnificent.
Elemental.
Phenomenal.
Elemental, my dear Watson, elemental.
That's the end of the story, Mr. Bell.
But Dr. Watson, didn't the man ever confess?
He did better than that. He offered to show up Moriarty, but when they came to take down his testimony, he was found dead on his prison cot. Obviously, more of Moriarty's work.
There's one thing I don't understand. Why didn't he take the same way out as the businessmen? Surely he could have doctored some corpse up so it looked like himself.
He could have, Mr. Bell, but that's where human nature comes in. He hated Mrs. Clutch, so he wanted to implicate her. It was his big mistake.
Well, that certainly is a fascinating story, Dr. Watson. Now to get back to something where there are never any mistakes.
I know what you're hinting at now. Another cup of G. Washington coffee.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Watson, have you ever stopped to consider how much the word economy has come to mean to Americans during the last couple of years?
It's come to mean more to me, too. I have to save on a lot of things I never thought about before.
How do you do it, Dr. Watson? Does it mean giving up all the good things in life and using cheaper quality?
Not at all, Mr. Bell. I still keep to the good things, but I'm a little more careful how I use them. More satisfaction in being a little careful with good things, you know, than in putting up with poor quality. Oh, by the way, Mr. Bell.
What is it, Dr. Watson? You're chuckling over something now, and it's only fair to tell what it is.
Well, a lot of people have been taking a lesson from Sherlock Holmes, Mr. Bell. They've been drawing deductions.
About what?
About my book of Sherlock Holmes stories, Mr. Bell. They've been observant enough to notice the little number 1 on the back of the volume, and they want to know if there are going to be other books with more stories in them later on.
I'm afraid I'm not very observant, Dr. Watson. I never noticed that little 1. And are there going to be more stories?
I can't tell for sure, Mr. Bell. I've been talking it over with Mr. Washington. But just in case there are, I want everybody to get volume 1 right away, so they won't be left when the first edition runs out and be unable to make up their complete set.
That's right, too. We'll have to warn them about that. Especially with that economy we were talking about. It's worthwhile getting a really good book for nothing. But what about G. Washington? Is that economy?
Of course it is. You know a Sherlock Holmes story about the rich old mustard manufacturer, don't you?
I know, Dr. Watson. I can't say that I do.
Well, it's a good story. It applies to saving money on coffee, too. It seems a smart young man, who thought he was smart anyway, asked the Mustard King if he really made all his money out of the little bit of mustard people use on their food.
And what did he say?
He said no. But he made most of it out of the mustard people leave on their plates. And that's just the way it is with coffee, or ordinary coffee, anyway.
You mean the real expense is not what you drink, but what you waste?
Exactly, and that's where G. Washington saves. There's no waste. You only make what you want, and yet you can have all you want.
Well, that sounds like economy, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Watson and I want you to test G. Washington economy. Get a 4-ounce can right away. Don't be afraid of the size of the can or the price. G. Washington is economical because it ends waste. And as a special inducement, why, Dr. Watson will give you one of his books of 7 Sherlock Holmes stories. Just print your name and address on the back of a label from your 4-ounce can and send it to Morristown, New Jersey. You will receive without cost a handsome deluxe book with a gold profile of Holmes on the cover and a picture of Dr. Watson as a frontispiece. In that way, you'll have the satisfaction of proving to yourself that G. Washingtons won't wreck your family budget, and of getting a handsome book of Sherlock Holmes stories for nothing. Please note down the address, Morristown, New Jersey. And send in that 4-ounce can label right away so you won't be left without Volume 1 if the good doctor persuades Mr. Washington to wish him Volume 2. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week's story?
Next week, I'm going to tell you the story of a man 20 years older than his bride and how death came to Rose Hill.
And now, in answer to numerous requests, we want to announce that the Sherlock Holmes program has been on the air for 3 years. The part of Sherlock Holmes is played by Richard Gordon, that of Dr. Watson by Lee Lovell. Neither Mr. Gordon nor Mr. Lovell play the part of a detective and his doctor friend in any other program.